got an outstanding guest, Carina Terra, who, among other things, Carina is a yogi. She's also an Ayurvedic farmer and a physics professor. Oh God. Thank you for doing this of service, because all those titles, we're going to have to start paying you a lot more money in the future when you come on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
And Dr. John E. is here as usual, guiding the ship and making sure we all stay in form and at our best. So, Carina, can we, our show is about helping people find themselves, be better people, and help other people be better people and build strong teams. And holisticness and nutraceutical, bioceutical, nutrition, exercise, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. That's kind of something I think I would turn to you about. So could you tell us a little bit about what you do and where you are?
Yes, well, right now I'm in Brazil. I was in Seattle for 30 years, where I taught yoga, and also I do sound healing with singing bowls, and I do toning with my own voice. I'm also a Reiki master, and I like the idea that yoga is union, not just of body, mind, and spirit, but it's also union of everything that exists in this reality and other realities. So I'm a generalist, and I like to study all these different things and see how everything integrates, because we are in a world right now where everything is about competition and separation. And it's just a myth, right? It's a myth that the collective agreement, that we decided to follow, that's what's happening. And so I think yoga helps us to go back to the fact that we are all interdependent, that we are not separate from each other, that what I do to myself, I'm doing to you, and vice versa, right? What I do to you, I'm doing to myself. And so I like to really study all these different things and then integrate everything, shamanic practices and yoga. Everything has a common origin, I believe. And yeah, so that's what I do. I do a little bit of everything. I'm also into growing foods that are clean and full of prana, full of life force, because if you're yogi, your body is a tool that you use, right, to find not only physical health and mental and spirit, but also spiritual health, right? And so food is really important. And food is not just the physical foods that you eat, it's also all the stuff that you take in, the movies that you watch, the stuff you believe in, all the things that you take in through all the five senses and all of the senses beyond the five senses. So all of that is important. But going back to actual food, physical food, it's very important to have food that is alive, that is full of prana. And so I've been studying the last couple of years, I've been studying agroforestry, which is a type of regenerative agriculture. And I think that soil health is really important. If the soil is depleted, it's dead, then our food, doesn't matter if it's organic, biodynamic, it's not going to be healthy. It's even less, conventional foods are even less healthy, which is why there's so much disease. There's so much disease right now in the world, because we're not integrating everything. And there's this whole polarity that's happening. If you're right, if you're wrong, I'm right, I must be right. And there's this black and white way of seeing things in the world. And there's no good or bad as far as, when you go up to a higher level of consciousness and energies.
on our last show, we had the Soil King, Patrick
Mhm.
King, and he was a probiotic farmer. He used to practice regenerative farming. Now he's gotten into probiotic farming. And I guess in the commercial sense, probiotic is a mixture of not just soils, but the nutrients and other additives, although that's usually a bad word in my book. So, and Patrick has just built a brand new company that's dedicated to soils, infused soils, and other stuff, nitrogens and oxygens. And I'm not the expert, so I'm not exactly sure what he's putting in there, but we ought to get you two together because he's one of the largest soil manufacturer and distributors in North America. And he, like many of us, is a cannabis person and into earth medicines. So maybe you could teach him some stuff, and maybe he could share some stuff with you, because that's an outstanding idea and something that I learned in the cannabis campaigns that I ran for about 12 years. We had a dust bowl because they stopped growing hemp in between the agricultural products, but we weren't told that. Like the story, if you look at Wikipedia or other places, where the history is recorded, they have all sorts of different reasons. The sun didn't tilt on the left and the moon didn't tilt on the right, and giant wolves ran off with the soil. So I think that's a really, really interesting topic you brought up there.
Yeah, that would be great to meet him and discuss all these things.
He's very compelled and energized in his expertise. I can
right. And we're all a little bit revolutionary. We're the biggest bunch of conforming nonconformists I've ever seen in my life. Or conservative nonconformists, if that makes any sense. I don't mean that. Yes. So, Carina, do you make yourself available to folks? Can they contact you?
Yes, I online, we can have sessions online, whether it's yoga or sound healing. And yoga, when I say yoga, doesn't even have to be just because everybody these days, and they do yoga, and I don't think yoga is something that you do. Yoga is something that you are. It's just going back to your natural state, right? And so, but there's this doing yoga because there's this physicality right now, and it's important because we do sit a lot, and so it's nice to take care of your body. So it is more physical these days than it used to be, but that's just the beginning. That's just one component, and there's learning to breathe. We don't know how to breathe. People don't know how to breathe. When you're a newborn baby, you know how to breathe, and then as we start to grow up and all the stresses of life and trauma and all of that, we forget and we unlearn, and so then we have to go back to how to breathe properly. And there's the mental component, there's an emotional component. People don't realize that a lot of yoga, if you really want to go in depth, is also about doing shadow work. It's really about facing your demons and facing, trauma and all. There's all of this work, purifying yourself to really know what your habits, your deep-seated impressions are that trigger you. Why do you behave a certain way? Why? All of this is part of yoga study, and so it's important. And knowing how to develop healthier, more constructive habits, and learning how to work with energy, because in tantric yoga, which is what I do, tantra yoga is really the art of managing energy. And so really managing your energy and knowing that energy is energy. You can use energy for evil or for good. You can use it destructively or constructively. And so with yoga, you can learn how to harness even destructive energy and then turn it around so it's constructive. It's learning to really transform energy so that whatever is not working can be something that can be used for good. So all of these little things I do, is just help people figure that out. And yes, and of course there's the meditation portion. So there's a contemplative side, right? And there is a more practical side. There's like a technique driven part of the practice, but there's also a contemplative aspect, which is really important because some people get really good at practicing yoga physically, even the breathing, the pranayamas, and they get really good at all the techniques of breathing and even meditating. They can sit in meditation for 2 hours, but if they don't do the deep work of purification and contemplation and really purifying their thoughts, speech, action along with the body, then it's incomplete.
And I'd just like to say that even an old fat guy like me can do yoga, because I have a little yoga thing that I do 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes 6 times a week. And the one thing that I was taught, and I actually haven't had any training, but the one thing that was brought to my attention was not just meditate during the yoga, but get centered before you step in. And so I have a very rigorous meditation process that I use, and sometimes it's up to an hour a day. Part of it is on my back doing yoga exercises. And yes, old fat guys, you can lay on your back and do yoga. and get something out of it. A technique I'm learning from Dr. John is the Merkaba. And although I'm not practicing it appropriately or effectively yet, I'm still contemplating how I'm going to do that. So I think that was a really important thing you said.
Well, perhaps you may be able to inquire with Carina regarding that.
Right.
He's such an understated master of that as well.
Yeah, so there's also this heart imagery stuff that we do, like and going into the space of the heart. And that is part of yoga too. And that's what people don't know, even though there's, the Merkaba and all that John's talking about, it's all integrated. If you really know where to look in the yogic texts, in the scriptures, in the ancient texts, it's all there, but it's not, the untrained eye doesn't see it. But if you study, and that's what I do study Sanskrit because it's a really important language. And Sanskrit is it's sound and sight. So it's visual. So it's important to know the Devanagari alphabet because you have to see it, but you also have to hear. And so there are all these different layers of meaning as you go deeper, not just a superficial translation into English or any other language, but there are deeper layers of meaning. And there are ways into the space of the heart, which is really unity consciousness as opposed to the brain being
dual.
Dual. Yeah, it's dual. You have 2 hemispheres of the brain, right? And it's dual. And that's all the polarity of the world. So it's really learning to know that the master is the heart, the brain is the servant, and not the other way around. The way that we do things right now in mainstream is that people are just doing everything logically, intellectually. It's all brain. And it's really important to know how to incorporate the heart into all of it.
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I concur. It's so nice to hear, and it's said so well. Sounds like something you told me about 30 years ago, though, Dan. Get out of the head and get in the heart.
Right? That 2-foot drop. Yes, you did.
But Big Dan, I started studying, and I went into the metaphysics with my PhD in my research lab and stuff like that 30 years ago. And because I could see that that was really the game in crime. And that the guys, the shot callers, were aware of that level. It was everybody else who wasn't. And as I studied, I'm a very, very determined learner. And so I'm very diligent. I don't know how good I am. I'm very diligent when I'm diligent. Anyway, so, and I got to the top of this hill and found myself, enchanted with my illuminated level, only to find these yogis, these yoga instructors. They may even instruct on just a purely physical level to most viewers. But anyway, I looked and I go, oh, so I did all this, climbed this whole mountain, and you girls ladies are way up there. So it does incorporate really and especially the way that Miss Carina has her view and understanding and experience and wisdom. It does integrate and incorporate everything, the whole journey. So it would qualify absolutely as a form of mentorship, in my opinion.
And guys, I'm having a little trouble with my internet. That's why I keep going in and out.
All right, I thought you were being humble.
So,
Just
yeah,
trying to.
sorry. I work one-on-one with people. I like working one-on-one, but I also work with groups, but I really do like one-on-ones because then things are tailored to that person's needs. And so where they're at on the journey into the heart or wherever they may go. So, yeah.
So, and I'm sure you've heard that Dr. John and I are putting together, people are putting together for us retreats to come in and be present at and share ourselves. And some of the retreats are going to be large, union, large corporate, large entity groups, and that's going to be sort of a general, discussion about what we try to get to with the core of folks, which is finding your team. And then as they pick their team in their organization, they'll come and share on a more, direct and intimate level as far as, fireside chats. And it's not just going to be a facilitated, everybody's got to sit in a chair and try to keep from falling asleep. And, there's going to be a lot of, because Dr. John and I, and I'm feeling this from you too, Carina, is that we really believe in what we're doing. And so it comes from a flame in our heart. And as we all know, that flame just isn't there because we're present. That flame is a result of, in our mentorship processes in life, that flame is there because we're interacting the duality too of, sharing the benefit of how we were mentored by the folks that mentored us, but also continuing to be mentored by folks, and then sharing that with folks that want to find this sort of aura in their lives and find that flame in their hearts. So I'm really hoping that as those events get put together, that we'll be able to bring you up, and bring you here. I believe maybe you're up higher in the mountains. I'm on the ocean, and John is not in the mountains or the ocean. So yeah, I think we're going to be looking forward to that. I am, and I know John is, and that's also part of the purpose of what our shows are about. It is helping people understand what to expect. And let them contemplate what it is that they, hope to get out of our process. Holisticness, spirituality, nutrition, it's a huge part of leadership. Leadership is not something that you got struck with a lightning bolt. I mean, there are folks out there that I guess have quick bolts of leadership that are thrust upon them. And oftentimes they self-destruct in the process. Sort of like having to save the ship, which you can also save the ship as a process in your life. It can be like, that's in our resume. We save the ship. We build the ship, we save the ship, we staff the ship, and we take it out and we bring it home safely. And the folks that get on the ship with us are nonetheless going to depart with an illuminated place in themselves that wasn't there before. It's one thing I can guarantee. If when folks come to meet with us, and it's not because it's us, it's not because it's Dan, or it's not because it's John.
It's not because it's John. Go ahead.
It's because of the process that we live in. And, like, all that is. Some people call it God, some people call it source. And, I've evolved to that community that refers to the creator of all universe, of everything, as all that is, and I'm a part of it, right? But I didn't come to that realization on my own. People actually taught me that, and oftentimes people were not saying, we're teaching you something. Sometimes people just said, grab that shovel and dig a hole over there. And the biggest lesson in it was, don't ask why. And trusting in the folks around you, and trusting in that light that you see coming from people. Once you understand how to see that light and experience it and see the result of it in your life, then you can see it then you can know it in the future. You have an understanding of it. But how do you explain to somebody who's never been blind, what sight looks like, and vice versa? Like, we can all close our eyes, but we really don't know what it would be to be without vision. So, and all of that is the result of experiences of what people rewarded us with. Because that's another thing about, I've heard people talk about leadership, and it's a gift of this, and it's a gift I have, and gifts. Well, the mentorship that I got was not a gift. I had to work for it. I had to want it and then work for it. And so what it has become in my life is a reward. And not just a reward of having the knowing it, but a reward of passing it on. And the reward of having the humility to still seek it in and from others. Right? Mm-hmm. So, we're going to look forward to you coming and joining us, and we'll figure out how to get you here. And
that would be awesome. Yes, I love retreats, because retreats are timeless, right? You move away from everything else, and you're there with people that really want to be there. They chose to be there, and you have so much more time. You don't have this, oh, I have to do this in an hour and we're done, because we're all there sharing, and all there because we want to be there. And it becomes like a unique experience. And even people coming from different backgrounds, you always start that, at least that's how I do things. You meet people where they're at, and then you start with what's real to them. And then from there, you go deeper into these other areas that you were talking about, where, this person has never experienced this, and person's really just in this external, physical world. How do you bring them in? For me, through yoga, is the breath, because the breath has a physical component to it. And so I tap into the body and the breath, and through the body and the breath, through the physicality of the body and the physicality, at least the physical dimension of the breath, because obviously there's more to it, then we can develop first sensitivity to breath, then sensitivity to energy, to prana, right? And then total awareness that there's a whole new reality out there that isn't physical. But you go all these different steps, and I see myself as a bridge. Like, I'm a bridge between here and here. I can't do the crossing for people. I can just be there and support them, and they have to do the crossing themselves. And so that's really how I see it. And retreats are wonderful for that. I love retreats. So yeah, I'm looking forward to joining you.
And we can put that together. When we'll put that together, Dan, I'm sure we can pack the house behind. What she has is a genuine capability, right? So when we talk about vetted practitioners, you know, and I won't go on, Miss Carina, but now, so this is the genuine article. And and that will pack the house with the kind of draw and attention that we have at the webpage, which is genuine interest in the real thing. So now we're able to supply it as well, right? So, you know, I look forward to that as well. In fact, you know, you could have a whole just yoga weekend or yoga philosophy weekend, or you'll name it, I'm sure. But that we could pack the house 10 times over all across the country with that, with the right marketing team. So one thing is kind of, you know, it's in progress, and these are preliminary videos, you know, for the show. They are part of the show, but we'll bring the, you know, we'll bring it all up another level, and the webpage will start bringing a lot of traffic. So that, you know, we're just getting started now, you know, we can fold that in.
And we feel like we have a responsibility, and Carina, you kind of have a responsibility to pass it on.
Yes.
But making yourself available is, you know, another little component that will, you know, that we enjoy is like, if you have a talent, if you have a specialty, and I'm talking to the whole entire world now, if you have a good story, if you have, you know, experience to share, bring it, because there's going to be space and time for that too. It's not just going to be about us sitting around and, you know, facilitating or sharing. Or, so, and every time I think about the path that we're on right now, I get so excited. And so, Carina, tell us some of the other stuff that we can look forward to knowing from you.
Yeah, I really like to work with sound and vibration and this other aspect of our being, which is pure intuition and this deep knowing that doesn't come from studying books, from reading books, from studying the entire, and that the intellectual part is one side of the equation. It's important because it's all about balance, right? But once you know something at that level that you studied it, then there's the practice, and then there's the actual direct knowledge, right? And direct knowledge is really the real deal. And direct knowledge, I cannot give you direct knowledge. It's something you have to experience for yourself, but I can be the bridge, the facilitator for you to have direct knowledge of something, right? So there's this component of direct experience that is really the real deal. It's this inner knowing that comes from you, your unique set of traits or whatever it is in your own experience. And in this, we're moving away from this old age where it was all intellectual to this other age where there's an intellectual component, but there's also this intuition and all of this knowledge that you go inside to get, right? To really access. And I think that's really important in all of the things that I do, you know, be it an online one-on-one with somebody or a big retreat with 100 people or more or less or whatever, intimate retreat, a big retreat. I've done both. And it's really facilitating that really, it's really energy management. To go back to tantric yoga, it's energy management. If you know how to read the energy in the room or in the space you're in, then you can guide people. And I agree with you, Dan, that to know something and to not share it before you leave this planet, it is really, it's really sad if I can't share what I know. And everybody has their own unique gifts to share. And it's important that we all share what we came here to share.
That's Lakota, how we pray for food is we take in the new knowledge, we incorporate and integrate the new knowledge, and then we pass it on. And that's with each bite, each meal. So in other words, metaphorically saying, with all things, with all energies, each moment, conceivably.
Yes, well, yeah, well put. Yeah, well said. That's exactly it.
Something that I was taught is learning gives you knowledge. Practice gives you understanding. And it's, you know, I can read all the diet books in the world. I can get a PhD. I can tell you how to go on a diet, but until I drop the donut, I'm not losing any weight, right? Same with weightlifting and you know, yoga. Until I actually stretch the muscles, I have knowledge of it, but
Mhm. Yeah.
so and some of the events that we're going to have will be here in the Mendocino coast in Northern California, where we'll literally be on the shores of the North Pacific Ocean on the Mendocino headlands, and also in the forests here in what's known as the Emerald Triangle, which is a pretty sacred place to a lot of people, especially people that live and think the way we do with earth medicines and nutrition and a spiritual component in their lives. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you on that level, Carina, and just for anybody that knows me knows that my wife Margaret is quite a baker, and they'll want to know if Margaret is bringing cupcakes and cakes and muffins, and yes, she will.
Infused.
Right, right.
Well,
So
that brings up Sir Francis Drake. You know, that's where he hid his mystery ship. You were talking about ships, Big Dan. You know, that's where he hid his, or had his, he dry docked his mystery ship, probably there at Drake's Bay, Point Reyes area, but that's a little south of where we're talking about. But that whole coast there has a peak for the, you know, the Earth's voice that we measure, and we call it the Schumann resonance. So absolutely, just to concur with you.
right?
And Terra means Earth, by the way, her last name.
Yes, Terra means earth. So I'm deeply connected to the earth and the trees. I always think of the trees as my sisters. I really love plants, and I have a really, a real affinity with herbs and plants, and all of that is part of a yogic lifestyle, because there is a yogic lifestyle. It's not just practicing the physical and mental stuff. It's really also, how do you live as a yogi in the world? Because it's the tantric way of living is being in the world without being of the world as we know it right now. Yeah, but being a part of all of it without being involved in all the drama and all of the stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. And just spreading this energy, this higher vibration wherever you go, and really leading by example. Really being, that light, that energy that you want to see.
Yeah, you know, and our resonance, that harmonic resonance actually will pervade situations. Whereas when we think that, oh no, here comes the blue meanings, it's going to overwhelm my, elegance, that actually isn't the case. We cause that in my experience. They actually can't push us around or push elegance around. That's the process we're in, I suppose. I wanted to mention also, she has a Melchizedek training for the illuminated heart, Dan, which would be Merkaba, would be a destination within that. And that's what this is. You may recall these, Carina, I think you were there.
Yes.
Yeah, so we would, and now in my school, we're gonna dance around we're gonna go around and do some katas together, work in teams, different stuff. But because I've evolved my branch of it, it's more of a martial thing. Go ahead, man.
An interesting thing that you mentioned that, and like you evolved, the martial aspect of it, because I have evolved the yogic side of it. And there are different ways of getting into the heart. As you know, there's Drunvalo's way, and there's, Claudette, Melchizedek, his wife has all of her, heart imagery stuff. And there's all these different ways of getting into the heart. And there are different ways, like, even Buddha, before we had Buddhism, right? But Buddha himself had the meditation on the lotus of the heart, which is really that people just don't really understand the depth of that meditation. And in yoga, in the Yoga Sutra, you have the also meditation in the lotus of the heart. And it is pretty much the same thing that we've learned, and incorporating that in the techniques, all the Merkaba technology with that, it's really the same thing. It's the same thing. And so there's different ways, because people, perceive things and experience things differently. So it's nice to have different ways of entering the heart and that space. You know, if you're more of a yogi, there's another way, or like with you with martial arts, there may be other ways of doing the same thing. Once you have this direct experience, this understanding that's visceral, that you know, because you've been there. It's not just I read about the Merkaba, right? You actually you have experienced it. You're in it. You're part of it, right? And so that makes all the difference. And just empowering people to do the same, right? Because you can't do the work for them, but we can definitely hold space and guide them. And like, I can be the bridge, you can be the ship, right? As you like the ship, you know, terminology. And I like being the bridge. I feel like I'm the bridge. And being here in Brazil too, I feel like I have this bridge between Brazil and the US now. And so I create bridges, right? I'm a world bridger.
Well, on a ship, it's called a gangway.
Gangway, yes. So maybe that's what it is. I'm the gangway.
Right.
I
Excellent.
love that. I love that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to talking lots with you. And I know that Dr. John has ultimate adoration and respect for you. And that means so much to me too. I sincerely, I adore and cherish my relationship with Dr. John, which has been for some time now. Even though I'm only 39, we've been friends for 35 years.
Yeah.
I still didn't even have hair then. So this has just been outstanding. Hopefully there's going to be a part 2 to this.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, it's been great. And there's so much more that we can say. Like, we always kind of direct the conversation in certain ways, but there are so many possibilities. And we barely scratched the surface of talking about the soil. We barely scratched the surface of working with frequency and vibration and all that. The sounds that are not like the verbal communication, but that are beyond that, right? The sounds, the more intuitive sounds, the sounds that are more resonant with different frequencies and energies and dimensions, and all of that is really fun to talk about.
I've been exploring the history of these ancient cathedrals and these giant behemoth structures, like these, 300,000 square foot, 18-story United States post office buildings in some obscure place where it certainly wasn't built by a bunch of people that were having trouble feeding themselves and only using wagons and wheels. And the architecture, it's got to be the result of sound. And I'm reading history where we've been taught to go there and pray and do the church thing, but I believe it's actually where people went to get sound healing and the bells, right? And so the whole town could be healed and enlightened, by coming and listening to the giant lead pipe organs that, just create that sound. I'm reading other stuff where possibly those buildings were actually created using sound. And so I'm always looking forward to any sort of, starseed impact of understanding. And I really feel like you're having an impact on everything I'm doing in my life. And I know you are on Dr. John's, because he talks quite a bit about you. So,
Now we're going to talk about Hathor's sound beings. Next. Okay, and they're these feminine. I believe they're Andromedan. I'm not really sure the star source, but they're coming in with a harmonic, Dan, that you're going to love to hear about.
They come from a different universe, and they came into this universe, and they're really connected to Venus here while they're here. But I work with them too, and they're awesome. They're just beings of frequency. They're beings of love, and they have a huge sense of humor. So that's why, John, you'll really like them, because they have a sense of humor.
Well, they put up with me this long, so
Yeah,
I know they have a sense of humor. Yeah.
Big one.
They're really way up there on vibration, Dan, and they're going to be so humble. They'll never admit to it. They won't even allude to it. But the Hathors are us Lyrans. you know, we're champions of the universe, but those are way up there from us. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
I'm having a good time, you know, getting, familiar, with my, Lyran roots. And Dr. John is somebody who helped me figure that out, because I've been, you know, the illumination has caused me to, you know, vibes rising has caused me to realize a lot of stuff, and then, you know, want to learn a lot of stuff. And I'm enjoying, getting in touch with my Lyran Foundation. So maybe we can, cover that on the next show. Thank you so much.